Oh, I didn't do my intro video. Oh, well. I didn't do my intro video. Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. Jennie Gage here of Life Take Two. Thank you for tuning in today. This is actually by popular demand. I have had more comments in the past couple weeks about more live streams and bringing more people on my show than anything else combined. So I'm doing that. You ask and I respond. And I'm so excited to have Chris back today. If you missed that video with Chris yesterday, it's JD Vance's old Senate seat, the hot race to watch in Ohio, and that's in my videos. So go check that out and listen to some of Chris's ideas. And I told Chris it had to be a twofer. If you're going to come on and do an interview with me, I also needed you back for a live stream. So good morning, Chris, and thank you.
Good afternoon. How's it going?
I guess it's not morning. Okay, we're 7 minutes past morning. Good afternoon.
Well, it's also 3:07 over here in Ohioville. So.
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I am good. Just enjoying our beautiful Saturday here in Columbus. Went to a farmer's market this morning, had some coffee, did some work. So all in all, a pretty good day.
Farmers markets are one of my favorite things in the world right now. It's just a great way to support local business. And we go to a heritage market where they have like the seal from the farmers market that they're actually farming and they're not just bringing in fruit from somewhere else. And it's a good way to go actually buy things from the people that are making it. So I love that. What's your weather like there today?
Oh, it's gorgeous. I think it's like 65 and partly cloudy. What is it? Oh, it's currently 71, partly cloudy. Wonderful, like walking around, chatting with people. Like I said, I got a coffee. I met with a friend. It was great.
The way that you say that 61 is like walking around weather. As an Arizona girly, I think it's already 90 something here today, and 61 degrees, I'd be in like a turtleneck, a sweater.
Yeah.
I'd have a coat just in case, but that sounds nice. So if you haven't caught my video with Chris, I'm so happy to just spend some time hearing Chris's ideas for the future, because he is a man who's trying to build a better future for everybody in the country and the world, but especially his home state of Ohio. Chris is running for the Senate seat that was vacated when JD Vance became the vice president. It was a special election. So how did that work, Chris? The governor got to pick the interim senator to replace JD Vance, right?
Yep.
Can you explain a little bit about that, how that happens in the process?
Yeah. So JD Vance was the elected senator. And then when he became vice president as part of the Trump administration, then that seat became vacated. And our Governor DeWine was allowed to fill that seat. And he filled it with John Husted. And so the election we have coming up next year, November 2026, is to fill the remaining 2 years. So John Husted's actually only been a seated senator for 8 months now, 9 months. And so, yeah, he'll have a 2-year term, and then that will give me a 2-year term, which will then, of course, if it's something that if I win and it's something I want to keep going on with, then I will have to go back to an election in 2028 for a full Senate term.
So pretty much as soon as you get into that position, then you're already thinking about your next campaign, and you're already running, because you only get 2 years before that next election because it's a special cycle.
Yeah. So I've already kind of talked to the team about that. And what I've been telling people is I want my work in the Senate to act as my campaign for me. So obviously I'll need to jump back and forth between Washington and here to kind of go visit and do town halls and things, because one of my goals is to be the most accessible senator in the country. And so I want to be available for people, and I want to be here. But also, yeah, I really, with the way election cycles go now, I mean, a 2-year election cycle is kind of becoming the norm for some of these things. So it's like, as soon as I get seated, I would have to start campaigning again. But I want my goal to go there is to be a senator and not to campaign for a Senate position. So I'm going to let the work that I do in the Senate hopefully talk for me as part of my campaign.
I think that in all of the conversations that I've had with you, there's one theme, and you just hit on it there again. And I don't know if you even realize about this about yourself, but you're a guy who cuts through all the bull crap and just gets to work. every conversation that I've had with you, tell me your life story and the origin story and where you're going with things. It's a story of a man who was focused on a job that he wanted to complete and got to work doing things. It doesn't seem like you're a guy that's like just wasting a lot of time on fluff. And I love that your first objective isn't thinking ahead to, well, this 2 years is just going to be my foot in the door and I'm not really going to be working when I get there. I'm going to be campaigning because I got to think about that next cycle. Like you're just always focused on the job at hand. And that's unique.
Yeah.
I don't think that everybody's like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think that that's a reflection of both, I think, my personality, but also being kind of a small business guy. It's like you have to focus on getting things done, because if you don't get things done, then you're not going to get paid and you're not going to eat and you're not going to be able to pay your employees. And so I'm just the kind of guy that like I don't like drama. I don't really need your drama llama. I'm more interested in like, can we just let's talk together, let's figure out how to do things and solve problems. Which I think a lot of people, like you mentioned, a lot of people seem to find refreshing. It's just sort of kind of what I do. But the side thing is that like I also don't like talking about myself because I don't find myself particularly interesting. So people will always ask me about myself, and I'm like, I don't know. I just do a bunch of things. They're like, well, how many jobs do you have? What are you doing? And I'm more interested in focusing on solving problems and hearing other people's stories than myself.
Can I say, and I'm not a psychologist, but I dabble in it, right?
Hmm.
I've taken a lot of
As we all
psychology
do
and
these
I'm just,
days.
yeah, we all do these days, but I'm in my therapist's office so often, and I have so many psychologists that I work with in my platform too. Um, I think what you've just explained is that type B personality. And it's funny because the type A's just want to be out in front. They have to be the
Hmm.
bosses. They have to have the attention. They want to be seen, and they don't necessarily delegate or work well. But I know that I would rather be behind the scenes myself, getting stuff done, managing projects as a team, and I like to stand back and see the work completed myself. Like that's kind of how I roll, which is why I think that I related to you so much. And I think that that's everything that you always explain. Like, I'm just going to get to Congress and I'm going to do the work, and the work is going to speak for itself. But it's not about you. You're not one of these people who is just, I think it would be cool to be a senator, or I think this would be fun to run for office. And all the conversations I've had with you, I actually get the feeling that you don't necessarily want to be seen. You want to make changes. You want your work and your legacy to speak for itself. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, I mean, I would I'd even be hesitate to use the term legacy, because I just do not care about a legacy. I'm here to do things, and if I can make the world a better place, and then you know, I don't even need a footnote in the history books. I just legitimately do not care. Um, and it's funny, if you want to kind of hear, you want to hear a little. I'm working on. I've got my kickoff event for the campaign on
When is
November
it?
5th. It's November 5th.
Okay.
I'll be posting some information on my Volpe for America socials and everything. But I've been kind of mulling this thing over in my head of how to start, and I think the direction I'm going to start is, and this sounds kind of silly, is that like this isn't about me, which I know sounds weird because you're coming to an event where like my name's going to be all over the place. But like everyone coming to this event, they're not coming for me. Yeah, my friends are coming to support me. But I think everybody is kind of coming to the events that I throw and listening to the conversations I have, because they're feeling that something is just fundamentally wrong in society
Mhm.
right now, and they are looking for a way to do something or to be involved and to try to help and make things better. And that is not a Chris thing. That is an American thing. And so
Mhm.
if I can be there acting as either a voice or a guide, or some sort of North Star or whatever, I'm happy to do it. But at the end of the day, I don't care about all the other stuff. It's funny, a friend of mine, this is like 10 years ago, before I ever thought about being in politics. And a friend of mine, he's just like, politics is just like high school with bigger numbers. And I remember him saying that, and I kind of thought about it, and I was like, yeah, there's like a lot of drama and nonsense. But the more involved in politics I am, the more I realized how much time we spend on just nonsense bullshit, just stuff that doesn't improve people's lives, doesn't put ideas or solutions forward. Um, and I'm just not interested in that. Like I don't care. There's a sort of quote. I'll butcher it here. I think it's an Eleanor Roosevelt quote, but it's like, um, great minds talk about ideas, like mediocre minds talk about events, and poor minds talk about people. And I think that's kind of true. Like if you spend all your time talking about people, which you'll notice, not that we need to jump into it so quickly, but a lot of times when Trump talks, he's talking about people, particularly himself, but he's talking about people. And then sometimes people will talk about like specific events, and I think that's where a lot of our conversations get caught into. In the digital green room, you're kind of asking me these questions where how do we talk to people and how do we navigate? I think a big way that we do that is stop getting caught in the minutia of all these details, because if we spend time, not that the details are not important, like if you're trying to create solutions and solve problems, they're extremely important. But if you're just trying to have a conversation with somebody, like a beer at a bar, you don't need to go into like this machine gun of data. That's not how people interact. And the fact is there's so much misinformation out there that it's easy to start getting caught in an argument. I cannot tell you how many
It's so
conversations
true.
I have had with people where after about 3 to 5 minutes, I'm like, all right, let's take a stop, because I actually think we're on the same page here. We're just talking about it from two different angles. And so I try to focus on goals and solutions. And then that way it gives us a starting point for where we can talk to, or, we can talk about. So a lot of us are like, well, we want to live safely, right? So the border is a part of that conversation. How do we make the border safer, instead of talking about getting caught about, well, Biden deported this many people, and it's like, well, Trump is deporting this many people, and it's like, well, he's throwing these people. It's just, now you're talking about these like details, and half the time the reality is nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. Like people are just saying things that they've heard from somewhere. They didn't really look into the details. So I would rather talk about, what do we want the world to look like? And then let's build backwards from there.
Some of those details are just labels that really don't guide who we are. Like, it's data
Yeah.
that, well, that's interesting. Like, I'm 5'3" and I'm 51 years old, and that's interesting data, but that's not everything about who I am. And
Hmm.
I do think that we lean into these categories so much lately that because we can. And part of that, I think, is the online culture, the social media culture. I can hashtag myself, I can hashtag atheist, Democrat, liberal, uh, feminist, whatever. I can hashtag these things, but underneath the labels, we're just people. Was it Shakespeare that, we all bleed the same? Underneath that, we have so much more in common. And I hate the divisiveness right now. Like it's my kids talk about it. My teenagers talk about how divided the world is and how terrified they are of the future. I've raised 2
Yep.
batches of kids. I had, 2 older kids, and then I had a 6-year fertility gap, and then I had 2 more, and now I have some stepkids that are a little bit younger than mine. So, I raised kids before Facebook, before the internet, before the world kind of shifted. My oldest kids were born in the '90s, and their life was very different. And they didn't talk about how they were afraid of the world and how the president was terrible and everybody hated each other and all of the wars and different things. They just didn't talk about that. That wasn't part of their lives. They were just living their, they were going to school and going to soccer and just
Yeah.
seeing what was in front of them. And my younger son, and we limit his social media, we limit the stuff that he does see, but it's constantly on his mind. He realizes that MAGA hates everybody and that Trump hates the Democrats, and he sees this divide, and it's sad. Oh,
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
hello.
We got
Who's
Pumpkin's
that?
making. This is Pumpkin. She's making an appearance.
Wait, so
Um,
you have a dog and a cat?
I have a dog and a cat, both of which I have rescued in like the literal term. My dog I got on the running down the highway in the middle of a blizzard. And then my cat I got in a rural Kroger parking lot from these people in a rusty white van. So,
Nuh-uh.
mhm. And they're both the sweetest things.
Wait, her
Baby
name
is
is
13 and
Pumpkin?
Pumpkin is 5.
So cute. Do they get along?
Yeah, yeah, they argue like sisters will occasionally, but by and large they do get along, and they're they're very sweet.
So I was just kind of cruising through my YouTube this morning, and I don't have a lot of time to consume other content because I'm always creating content. So I don't watch a ton. But today I just thought I'd kind of scroll through and see what YouTube recommended to me. And it was insane, some of the stuff that came up. This music video that I'll send to you later. And I thought about playing it, but I think it's so offensive that I didn't want to put it on a live stream. This cute little
Okay.
country looking girl, and the title of the video is Fuck the Woke. Sorry for the profanity. Any of my grandmas who may be watching who don't like me to cuss. And the entire video was kind of repeating some of the stuff that I've heard from MAGA and Donald Trump, part of the stuff that I used to engage in because I am former MAGA. I used to be a
Mhm.
huge Trump fan and Trump supporter. But it was, just how disgusting and horrible these woke people are with their political correctness and trying to police everybody. And it was such a shocking song, even from somebody. Chris, I was MAGA. I was a Christian nationalist. I was a white supremacist. There's
Yep.
MAGA. There's people who just really think that Trump is going to be the vehicle to make America great, and they're just normal, regular Americans. And then there are the extremists, and I certainly spent 48 years of my life in that extremist vein. And this video shocked me. Another video that I saw was by a man. I don't even want to mention his channel here, but I am going to do a video response to him later this week, but I don't want to include that here. And he was talking to women specifically and saying, there's absolutely no reason for you to be working. You need to be married. You need to have as many babies as you can so that we can restore um, the American way of life, is the way he put it. And in this video, he was blatantly racist.
Yeah, I'm
He was
curious what his
blatantly.
version of American way of life is.
I'm going to send you a couple of his videos.
Yay.
And then around my town, I have, people protesting and so much stuff going on. And I feel like every day of our life right now is this kind of a low-grade civil war between Americans. And it stuns me every single day to see this because I've never lived through this. Even, I was born in 1974. We didn't have this level of just hatred for other American citizens, right? And I don't understand why we have to engage like this. The hatred isn't necessary. If we could just step back and dialogue together about solutions that give everybody their freedom and protect everybody's rights rather than having a winner and a loser. And that's where we're headed. Where
Yeah.
we're headed right now is that we're in this battle where there's going to be a winner and a loser. And in a lot of ways, now that I'm no longer MAGA, now that I identify as a liberal, I identify as a Democrat, and I'm very protective of minorities and women's rights and the working class and things like that. Now that I am part of all of that, I'm very much aware of the fact that when I was my old self, I didn't want anybody else to have rights. I thought that my religion, my political party, my way of life was the ideal, and I wanted to force it on everybody.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
Of course you
terrifying
did.
now.
Of course you
Of
did.
course I did. Like there was no tolerance for anyone else having, like everybody should be like us. We are the
Mhm.
ideals. And I don't see this ending well unless we come back together as humans and allow each other that space to carve out your own life and lean back into things like the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and everything that America is founded on, which I mean, it's
Yeah.
genius in the way that it does protect all of our rights. Like Christians can be Christian and atheists can be atheist and lesbians can be lesbians and everybody can be everybody. Like our American founding documents are actually kind of genius that way. We don't have to
Yeah.
have this winner or loser type of situation. Are you seeing that? Like, my God, what do you think about the divide?
I mean, I think there definitely is a divide. I mean, you asked me a lot of questions in that statement
Yes.
there. So yeah, I mean, there's obviously a divide, right? Like if this was a functioning, like a real functioning democracy, Donald Trump would be like an 8% candidate, and he is not. So I think
Hmm.
that tells us something in and of itself about where we are. And
Well,
one
Donald
of the
Trump
things,
merged all the cults. Donald Trump spoke to all of the alt-right groups, all of the preppers, the Mormons, the evangelicals, even like
Mhm.
the non-religious people who just wanted more order and more law. Donald
yeah,
Trump was elected because he literally came in and he won because he had a masterful merger. He merged all of the cults together.
sure. And well, he did, but he did it through being a con man and a liar. Like he's not actually interested. And I think one of the things that I'm worried about, and then we kind of jump back to maybe some positive stuff, is that the the longer this goes on, the more people are going to be captured in this sort of bubble of the administration, and the more people will be, um, we'll say, at risk of going to jail, for example, right? The worse this gets, the more people are on there, which also means that every day that this kind of goes on, there's more and more people that are going to be fighting harder and harder to not give up power, and their willingness to defy the Constitution, break the rule of law, all that kind of stuff, will increase because these people don't want to lose power and they don't want to go to jail. Now, occasionally you might get somebody like, I don't know, maybe like a Michael Cohen or someone who, again, kind of had to get into trouble before he saw the light. But he at least, uh, when the bell rang, he was willing to sort of, step up. And there was, obviously there was some people, particularly young women in the first administration, that stood up and were like, I'm not going to be a part of this anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that's the scary part, because that's how these things get out of control. You just get more and more people who enter into this sphere where they're like, I'm not going to jail and I'm not giving up power. And so they will go to further and further lengths to make sure that that doesn't happen. Um,
That's what's scaring me right now because that's what I feel. And somebody asked what you missed. If you're just hopping on, I have the amazing guest, Chris Volpe, today. He is running for the Senate seat that would have been JD Vance's. And it's a special election. So the election is when?
it's
Your cat
no
is eating your nose.
I know this is, I don't know why this is something she just likes, kissing my nose. She, ever since she was a little kitten, that's just something
That
she
is
really liked. So
hilarious.
if it makes her happy, but I'm running for a U.S. Senate seat, the federal Senate position in Ohio in November 2026.
Okay, November 2026. Um, I love this comment. We were way more united a generation ago. I was watching on MTV interview from the 90s on YouTube. Everyone was happier and the crowd was diverse, but all spoke the same way. Certainly America has been a very divided country from the beginning because we are
Mhm.
colonizers. We came in by force and obliterated all of the First Nations people and had enslaved humans with us. And we got off to a really kind of a typical start for that era in history. And we worked through that. We fought through that. We were constantly battling for change and correction and updating who we were as a nation in
Yeah.
some really remarkable ways. Women's suffrage and the civil rights and so many things that corrected some of those, I guess, original bugs in the system, right?
Yeah. Well,
But
I think that's the core of that. A lot of people are feeling this heartbreak is because I think a lot of us just felt like we had
we were
moved
in a good
past this.
space.
Yeah, we weren't perfect, but we're better than this. I still firmly believe we're better than this. Because people ask me, because they get very down. They're like, how could Trump get elected a second time? And again, it was very close. I think it was like, someone correct me in the comments, I think it was the second closest presidential election we've had since the year 2000, which was the Bush Gore one. So it was an extremely close election.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I remind people, particularly the Democrats, is that we didn't lose to Donald Trump. We lost to apathy. And the lesson that we
Mhm.
can learn from that is that Democrats are not exciting people. The policies are better. I mean, you can look back in history over the past 40 years. Just looking at presidential elections, GDP is better under Democratic presidents. Job growth is better under Democratic
Hmm.
presidents. unemployment is better, stock market returns are better. So the policies I think are better under Democratic presidents. And I'll be the first to, if we could have an hour conversation about the failures of Democrats all day long if you want. But
Well, and
I
I think the
think,
thing about that is every politician that I've talked to, like I have several senators and city council people and different people that I speak to on a fairly regular basis. And they're all the first ones to admit that, yeah, we make mistakes. Oh, that was probably a bad policy. And we were just trying this out and that didn't work. Like, yeah, not that we were perfect, but the data doesn't lie. I love this comment by Sean. The Democrats need to grow a spine because, Chris, that's exactly what you're talking about. We need to
yeah,
grow a spine and push
that's why
back
I'm
even
running.
more aggressively rather than playing this both sides BS and making sure they don't upset Republicans. But something that I see now that I actually have Democratic friends for the first time in my life because I was MAGA and all that just 2 years ago, right? Something that I'm seeing a lot is that I feel like the Republican Party is very much like this rules and regulations party. It's very absolutism type of party, and it didn't used to be, but it certainly has taken on that personality, right?
I
I
think it
think that we
always
saw
has
this.
been.
It
I
maybe
think
always has been
the thread of the Republican Party has always been about sort of,
control.
yeah, control and there's sort of a union of very similar ideas, and the Democratic Party, just by its nature, the modern Democratic Party is such a diverse coalition that it's
Yeah,
a
it's
lot
more like
harder.
kumbaya, like
Well, it's
peace,
just
love,
you
and
kind of have
happiness.
to, and there's a lot. I think I'm re-energized by young people because I think that on the left there's been a lot of kind of like eye rolling sometimes where you're like, could we stop fighting about literally every issue all the time? Like we're never going to get anywhere. It's not that this is not important, but like right now we need to focus on certain things. I've seen a lot of young people come out lately and just be like, I want to start winning elections. Let's stop screwing around.
Mhm. That's a great
And yeah, like
question. So, Chris,
I don't think being a Democrat's exciting. Like I just
yeah,
it's
here's a question for
like,
you. How
yeah,
do you be exciting? How do those of us who aren't MAGA and left become more interesting and be passionate without becoming too emotional like MAGA? On the one hand, I feel like Gavin Newsom, and please, if you work with Gavin Newsom, have him reach out to me because I would like to be a MAGA translator for you. Um,
okay.
but I think that like Gavin Newsom, you kind of see him breaking out now and all of his funny stuff, like Make America like California, and he's selling the hats and everything. I think that we see a little bit of Democrats realizing that we do have to push back and we do have to fight if we're ever going to regain, the Senate and the Supreme Court, anything. If we're going to regain power, we are going to have to fight back a little bit. But I don't see anything other than like Gavin Newsom and Ro Khanna and a couple of people and people like you on an individual basis standing up and deciding to run, which is a huge deal because it's not like your whole life your family was pushing you to become a politician. This is something
Oh
that
yeah,
you
no.
just spontaneously decided to do because you're in this to fight. Like you put
Yeah.
on those gloves the minute you walked down and filled out the application to run for JD Vance's old seat.
Yeah. I think it's funny because again, I think people on the left, I'm painting with a broad brush here, right? But people on the left and Democrats, I think, have this tendency, again, to get caught in the details about stuff. And the argument I always make is if you are excited about your vision and values, and if you fight for those, you will be exciting. So people will ask me,
Wait,
like
will
you
you
asked me,
say
what?
that again? Say that again.
Okay,
I love
if
that.
you believe in your vision and values, then fighting for those will make you exciting.
Hmm.
Like it's that's the thing, is like Trump fights for what he wants. It's just what he wants is to stay out of jail and to get a lot of money and power, you know? And so he'll it's easy for him to just lie to people because he does not care about you. He knows that there's going to be no repercussions to the things he says because up until this point in his life, there have been no repercussions for the
Right,
things he
he's born
says.
rich and he's been rich his
Yeah.
whole entire life. He's just
I
walking around
mean,
doing rich people
he
things
managed
and
to, not only did he manage to skate away from going to jail, but he's now prosecuting the people that were trying to put him into jail. And so, like, if I was Donald Trump, in the back of my mind, I'd be like, yeah, I'm always going to win because I've always won. I'm 80 years old. And what has he lost at this point? But I keep telling people, like, you should be excited to fight for your values. And so when I'm talking about like giving people health care, I'm not like, well, we can do this, this, and this. And I was like, can you just imagine being able to walk out the door and know no matter what happens, your kids are going to be taken care of, or if you get hit by a bus on the way to your job, you're
Mhm.
not going to walk out of the hospital with like $100,000 medical debt. Like, can you imagine being able to pursue the career you want to and go to a college or a vocational school, for a public one for free, and so you won't be loaded with like the student loan debt? And this is from a guy who had like almost $200,000 in student loan
Mhm.
debt. Um, like, talk about things that can excite you. Like, I am excited to build. I really like building businesses. It was never something I thought I was going to do, but I really like building businesses. I want to be able to help people create businesses that are inspiring and meaningful to them, and cut all of the crap and inefficiencies out of the way so that they can go and do that. And giving people healthcare is a big one. Like, if I didn't have to worry about healthcare as an employer, like, that would be amazing. And just as a person, if I could just know that I'm covered. And I'll give you an example right now with the mess. So I'm a part of the like the Obamacare ACA small
Mhm.
business plan. And if the subsidies go away because of the big beautiful bill, my insurance could go from $380 a person to over $800 a
Mhm.
person a month per month. And like, that is a worry as a small business owner I wish I didn't have, because I want my people to be taken care of. And so like, I'm excited and jazzed for these things, because like, that's the world I want to live in. So let's fight for those things.
Chris, I didn't have insurance for almost ever in my entire life, and I'm 51 years old. And I did a video about it this week. I can't remember what the title is. When we post this live, then I'll put that link in the description. But my ex-husband and I were small business owners. He owned the business. I was just the wife, right? But because of that, we were just priced out of insurance when I was like 23, 24 years old. Our brand new baby um had a serious injury. He actually had his hand caught in an escalator. He was just barely walking, and he was standing up next to my husband on an escalator. The escalator grabbed his hand and it severed it. And he had 12 surgeries just in that first couple years. And what happened was my husband had a regular job when we first got married, and he had medical insurance.
Hmm.
But because the ambulance took us to a hospital that wasn't on network, and the surgeon that saved my son's hand was not on network, and all
I'm
kinds
sure that
of
was
little
pricey.
problems, all kinds of problems like that. Like we got like a $50,000 bill for just the first surgery, and
Yeah.
we couldn't pay that, but the insurance canceled us. So then we became self-employed. Sometime that year, we bought my ex-husband, we bought the business, and we went to apply for insurance. And because my son had this pre-existing thing with all these surgeries, we weren't able to get insurance. And if we had paid for insurance as self-employed people, then it would have been like thousands of dollars a month. And it's like, yeah, we made money, but we didn't have the money for that. And then there
Hmm.
were still copays and out of pocket stuff. So I paid cash for all of my medical stuff for most of my life until I had my ovarian tumor in 2013, which ended up being a $250,000 ordeal just in the first 6 months. And then it went beyond that. So then we had a medical bankruptcy, which destroyed our lives. And I read somewhere that like 90% of all personal bankruptcies in the United States are medical related, which is horrifying. So 2 years ago, I've done a ton of videos over
So
my TikTok. Mhm.
that one of the things that you mentioned, there's some back and forth about what the number of actual medical related. Most people say it's around 50 to 60% are medically
Okay,
related. And the thing is about 75 to 80% of those people have health insurance of some kind.
right.
So this idea that like only people who are, poor or not working or whatever are suffering from medical bankruptcy, it's not true. Like, it's
Well, we
normal
weren't poor.
folks
We
are
made good
getting,
money. Yeah, our
yeah,
business made really good money. We lived in a beautiful home. We were able to vacation, and we like owned a boat and all kinds of stuff, but we didn't have $250,000, and
yeah,
everything got turned over to collections. And then it was more on top of that. That was just my initial treatment and surgery and intensive care unit and different things
yeah,
like that. And then it got to be more like I was $1 million woman within just like a year and a half. So we had that medical
sure.
bankruptcy. And yeah, it's not like we were poor. It's not like we like he
Well,
wasn't like a school teacher. We were
I
living
see a
in
comment in
projects.
here from Sean saying healthcare should be a right, not a
Yes.
privilege, and I agree with that. But I would even phrase it another way, because I think again, once you start talking about rights versus privileges, then idiots come out of the woodwork and people start arguing about things. It's just like, okay, let's ignore the right versus privilege for a second, and let's talk about efficiency and like,
because you're a systems
it is,
guy, so you just want to think about how
yeah,
things are going to operate.
it is much better for a society to be able to cover its people, because now you have a healthy and productive workforce that is adding to the economic productivity of the country. So the more people that are able to just, when they get sick or even have preventative care, that increases the GDP production of society, because they're not wasting time. Like, there's a big jump. So again, my background's public health, one of my backgrounds, and public health initiatives and preventative care can save hundreds of billions of dollars per year, because if you can keep people out of the ER, or you can hit a cancer before it starts to metastasize,
Right.
or any of these other problems, the cost to treat that is significantly cheaper. So even if you don't care about the right versus privilege thing, if you care about economic productivity, it still makes sense to cover all of our people. And in Ohio, there is a massive, massive conversation going on, because again, the big, beautiful bill about these rural hospitals that are going to start shutting down. And if that happens, I mean, you're looking at rural folks who could be living 90 minutes to 2 hours away from a cancer center, and they're going to have to drive 2 hours each way for treatment. Like, I'm fortunate that I live in Columbus. My friend has stage 4 cancer. I take him to a lot of his appointments. He's a 3-minute drive up the road, and the hospital's a 5-minute drive from his house. So that's very fortunate. But a lot of people are going to get slammed when these rural hospitals start closing. And so again, as a systems guy, and I always balance sort of like the economic standpoint with the sort of moral imperative. And the funny thing is these two things are most of the time aligned. For some reason,
Right.
we've allowed this idea of, it's like, take care of people, but it's going to cost a business. And that's just not true.
Right, like, I was disabled for 12 years. For 3 years, I didn't have medical care just after the tumor and the medical bankruptcy, so I was in bed for 3 years, so we lost our business. My husband wasn't able to be productive. We were at one point, we had food stamps and different things, so then we had some support from the state, and that's such an interesting thought. Here, let me read this comment really quick, and then I'll finish my thought. Merrick Garland waited for too long to pursue charges against Trump. It seems that our officials didn't rise to the moment required to stop this right-wing attack on our democracy. And I think that's because we didn't realize how serious the threat was. But
I think it's actually worse than that. If I can
yeah,
say,
you think it's conspiracy? You think that it was intentional? Not a conspiracy.
No, I don't think it was
but
intentional. I think it is a reflection of how our Democratic leaders, the Democratic side of the force, how they view the world and how they function. There was a great podcast I listened to the other day, and this is one of the reasons why people ask me, "Can I win the election against Sherrod Brown? Am I going to be able?" And this is one of the things I say is, like, I firmly believe that I can win against Sherrod Brown. That's why I'm running, and that's because the Democratic Party, the establishment, moves so slowly. They have to like have their consultants like field test every message, and they're always like waiting to see what the what's going on in the grander scheme of the news cycle, so they can try to get in. And so Democrats,
didn't you feel that during the presidential election?
yeah,
Like, we needed to
absolutely,
turn on a dime. We needed to see Biden's not going to make it, and we need to pivot really quickly. We need to put somebody else strong in there. It was such a slow moving, like, you can't, it was like trying to turn the Titanic from hitting the iceberg when we needed to maneuver a lot quickly. And I'm
yeah.
not a politician, so I
I
just
don't think
observing from the
anybody.
outside.
The only person that learned anything from the Comey Clinton email thing was Donald Trump. And what
Yeah.
Donald Trump realized is that he can put these people into positions based on total nonsense, and they will be scrounging around trying to figure out how to get out. And that's what he's done for the past decade. He creates chaos so that people get stuck in it, and then they have to spin around in circles trying to find a way out. And it maddens me that the Democratic leadership, who are supposed to be these extremely intelligent people, and many of them are, cannot seem to understand what's going on, because I don't think I'm the smartest guy on the block, but it's very clear to me what is happening. And so I just find it frustrating. And I'm not talking as like a person running for Senate right now. I'm just talking about as a normal guy. I find it very frustrating that the leadership on the Democratic side cannot seem to understand and pivot around these issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's frustrating to me as somebody who's not running for Senate.
Yeah, that last question about the healthcare cost burden, I think, is really important.
So, Chris, before you answer this, John, Chris studied healthcare in college, right? Do you have your master's degree in health systems or something like this? So this is actually your background. So as you run for Senate, one of your big things is healthcare. It's would I be overstating to say that it's one of the most important policies that you want to get in and take a whack at should you be elected to the Senate is healthcare, because you do have background in healthcare and you know intimately how those systems work just on a cost-effective individual basis.
Yeah, healthcare reform is one of my top issues for sure. But yeah, I think you are correct. So I got a master's in public health, and I have a master's in health administration. And I was in healthcare for about 8 or so years. But I think the big thing there that John was hitting at, you can actually apply to everything. The burden has been placed on us as individuals for the past 40 years. And so things that used to be handled by the government or subsidies or infrastructure or whatever, healthcare, housing, education, jobs. I mean, just look at the gig economy, right? Like the gig economy has sprouted up as a reflection of us not being able to afford a reasonable middle-class lifestyle. And now the gig economy has supplanted most of people's side income. So now in essence, it is a necessary second job instead of something I do on the side to make money. It's become a necessary part of them living. And we see this in education right now. So I am a teacher. I've been a teacher for over a decade, but I'm an adjunct professor. So I get because I'm in Ohio, I get the teacher's retirement benefit, but I don't get any of the other benefit plans because I'm not a faculty member. And we're seeing that more and more where universities and colleges are hiring adjuncts so they don't have to pay faculty rates and pay for benefits. And that's happening everywhere. 1099 contractors are a huge thing now everywhere. And I think that moving a lot of this burden away from businesses, particularly small businesses, will make it easier for both the businesses to function, but it'll also make it easier for us, because a lot of times we get so tied down in our job, not because we like the job, but because if we leave, we lose all our benefits. And it becomes really, really challenging to survive even for a month or two. I mean, it terrifies me when you say you didn't have health insurance for the longest time, because even not having a lot can happen in 2 months.
Chris, I almost died. So 2 years ago, I had surgery. I did a bunch of TikTok videos about this abdominal surgery. Ever since my ovarian tumor in 2013, I have been dysfunctional. I have been almost unable to eat. I spent like 7 years of my life below 100 pounds, and I'm not supposed to be below 100 pounds. I was completely nutritionally deficient, in 10 out of 10 pain. If I drank water, my stomach hurt. And I got to the point where 2 years ago, I could barely raise my arms to like get a glass out of the cupboard. And so finally, after my divorce, I was poor enough that I got state health insurance. I got our Arizona Access Insurance. So for the first time in my adult life, I had doctors. And I went in to see a doctor, and I told this surgeon all about everything that was going on all the time. And she's did some imaging, and she's like, the intestinal tract is really difficult to image. What I'd like to do is just go in and open you up and do an exploratory surgery, which I could have not been able to afford before. And it was covered by my insurance with a very small copay. And she went in and she found that my colon had perforated. I almost died. I had scar tissue that was adhering the wall of my intestine, or my intestine to the wall of my abdomen. My bladder had grown onto my colon. I had widespread systemic infection. My white cells were so high that they thought that I had had cancer, but it was just the stuff that was very easily surgically corrected. So, 12-hour surgery, and my surgeon was able to correct stuff that I had lived with for 12 years. For my entire adult life,
Yeah.
I was barely able to function, could not eat, in chronic, constant pain. The year that I had this surgery, I'd had something like 22 trips to the ER, 7 hospitalizations. Finally, just let's go in and get this taken care of. And because I had medical insurance, she saved my life and changed my life. Like, I wouldn't be on my YouTube today. I run a small business today. I'm taking care of my kids today
Sure.
because for the first time in my adult life, I had medical insurance.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, I mean, healthcare, it's one of those things, to be honest, I find talking about healthcare so frustrating. I love it, but I find it so frustrating because I'm 44 and we have been having the same conversations about healthcare for 44 years and we are
yeah.
making no progress. The ACA was the largest sort of real meaningful change in my lifetime that we've had around healthcare. And even that at its core was just a set of insurance reforms and regulations.
Don't
Like,
you feel
nope.
like, I'm not a politician and I don't know the stuff that you know, but don't you feel like some of the reason that happens is that the people who have all the money, like the lobbyists and the pharmaceutical industry and the healthcare companies, they don't want us to have a conversation about healthcare because they're making money off of all of us being sick. And so they're the ones who have the money, they're the ones who have the power. So it's really difficult for us as a population to
Yeah.
overturn the system that's making all of them fucking rich as hell. Sorry about the cuss words, grandma's in England, but totally necessary. Ken asked Chris regarding healthcare, what's your thoughts to common oppositions to healthcare for all? That I think I've heard. Number one, it lowers quality of care. Number two, it's too costly overall. What's your response? Do you have a quick response to that question?
Yeah, I think ultimately both of those things are just incorrect. It's not costly. So just for example, it's estimated somewhere like 25-ish. So 25% of our money we could save every year simply by switching to a universal healthcare system because of billing. We have so many different billing processes, so many different insurance companies. So healthcare providers, hospitals, have to spend so much time and money just billing for different things because it's all this like weird thing. And then you have to be wasting time getting pre-approved by insurance companies. There's no evidence that shows that it lowers quality. A lot of people will pull out wait times. They're like, well, you have these super long wait times. And I was like, if you compare the United States to Canada, a lot of people do, right? Like the United States has much faster wait times than Canada does. And I'm like, that's true, except for a lot of those studies don't include people who never receive services. And if you add them into the mix, the United States actually has much longer wait times because there's a large portion of our society who never gets care at all or until it becomes an emergency. And
Right.
so
So in Canada, you
something,
may wait 4 years to get into an oncologist, but I waited 11 years to have something fixed. There was a very simple surgery, and if it had been fixed 11 years ago, then I would have
yeah.
never gotten so bad. So I wasn't
And you
included
can,
in any of the studies about wait times.
yeah, and one of the things that you can look at, like, I love America, but America likes to believe it's like the only place to ever encounter these problems. And you can look at lots of other countries have universal health care. It currently costs us, depending on the country you're comparing it to, 2 to 4 times the cost of other countries per person to cover this. And so it's just sort of ridiculous. I'm a big fan of a universal system. I think we should all have healthcare. We should all be able to go to the doctors that we want, and we should be able to walk out without a bill. So that's another thing, talk about systems where people are like, oh, it's going to be too costly. It's like, okay, well, imagine what do you pay right now for insurance, right? Just like random job person. You're probably paying between $400 and $600 a month. Your business that you work for, your employer is paying maybe half of that. Imagine you didn't have to pay any of those premiums. So that's another $3 to $5 grand in your pocket per person, depending on your family size. And then imagine you can go to any doctor you want. And when you walk in, there is no copay and there is no deductible. So now that saves you, another couple hundred or couple $1,000s. So by implementing a universal healthcare system to you personally, most folks will save between $3 and $5 grand a year because they're not paying those premiums. And so your taxes might go up $50 a month, but your premiums, deductibles, and other insurance costs will go down $600-700 a month. So I would much rather pay $50 in taxes than $700 in healthcare premiums. So all of this just the data doesn't prove it out. You can look at also the state data, and most of the states that are quote unquote red. I don't really believe in the red blue dynamic. I think it's a marketing gimmick that our
Oh, it's
political
such a
parties have
marketing
used.
gimmick.
But if you look at that, like the blue states in general provide better healthcare, and they have better standards of living than red states do as a general thing. Now, I'm not saying blue states are better than red states, but it's important to understand when you're talking about systems, there's a cause and effect. And there's a line that I love. It stuck with me ever since I went to my public health school. And that is, every system is perfectly designed to give you the results you get. And what that means is, where we are now and what is happening now is not just random rolls of the dice. We are getting the results we get, whether it's education, healthcare, open borders, our political system, whatever, because that's how the system is set up and functions. And if we want different results, we need to change how the system works.
That's kind of scary.
It is. Yeah, I say this all the time, but like where we are now, it didn't just fall out of the sky. Like, this is the direct result of policy decisions that have been made over the past 50 years that have led us to this position.
Chris, I have a couple of questions for you. If Ken or somebody else wanted to ask you some further questions, where would they are like you say that you're trying to be the most accessible political candidate in America and the most accessible senator should when you get elected.
Yep.
How would Ken reach out to you?
Yeah. So there's a contact form on my website at volpeforamerica.com. You can also just email me, chris@volpeforamerica.com. I have a Discord channel you're welcome to join that we're getting ramped up. And so people can pop on there and ask questions or be a part of our volunteer network or whatever. So lots of ways to get a hold of me. You can always ping me. I believe both my Blue Sky and X account, Twitter account, have messages open, so you can ping me on that. I'm around all over the place.
Awesome. And Ken, if you do reach out to Chris because you want a little bit more information from him, more talking points on this topic, then just make sure that you mention that you were on the live and give him a little reminder. So it might be a stupid question. If we do healthcare for all, does that remove the need for health insurance companies?
So it's not a stupid question. And that's one of the really important things when we talk about universal healthcare, healthcare for all, Medicare for all, whatever. One of the things we have to remember is that there's lots of different ways you can create a universal healthcare system. So, for example, Germany has health insurance companies, whereas like England, the medical system is a part of the government, more or less. I'm being very simplistic here, just for simplicity, but I think that if we're going to keep health insurance companies, then what they need to do is be the ones that would facilitate sort of the payments and the care of the people, of the patients. That doesn't mean that they get to deny people. It means that their job is to facilitate the payments and the care, and in exchange for that service, they would get a premium profit margin. We would figure out whatever that is. It's usually around 4 to 8%. And then also one of the things that you can do is that you give. I'm in this situation where we're keeping insurance companies, you would give the insurance companies a set amount of money every year for preventative care for each person that they insure or that they take care of, so they administer. And then the incentive then is to make sure that they are helping people be as healthy as they can. And part of that would make sure that they are not denying people and skimping on healthcare, because they would want you to get the healthcare that you're entitled to, because they're not paying out on the end. But it's important to remember, every dollar of profit that a health insurance company makes is a dollar that's being taken out of the care system. And so we have to ask ourselves again, what is our goal here? Is our goal to make sure that everybody has access to affordable healthcare and that they aren't going to get caught in bad positions, either physically, emotionally, or financially?
I don't think that's the goal.
Or is the goal to allow health insurance companies to make a lot of money?
Yeah,
If
I
that's
think
the
the goal
case,
is for the
we're
health
doing
insurance
great.
people to, yeah, I think that that is the goal. I have
Yeah.
friends who are in the pharmaceutical business. Just like pharmaceutical sales reps, and a friend who is a nutrigeneticist who worked on the National Institute of Health during COVID and things like that.
Hmm.
And they are rich as bloody hell. So I think the goal is for this system to exist so that
Yeah.
the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry and the insurance industry can make money off of us. And it's doing a wonderful job.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
that is not my goal. My goal is to create a society that leads culturally and economically for the next 100 years. And I want people to be able to live. I think I said it yesterday. I actually said it really well. I should probably chop it, but I mean, at the end of the day, my goal is to allow people to live meaningful lives in the way that they want to.
mhm. Isn't that why, like, I've been reading the
Oh, thank you,
Constitution and the
Kelly. That's very
Declaration.
kind.
No, I love this comment. This gives my heart so much hope. God bless you, Chris. We need younger people like yourself. I agree with that. And I try not to
I'm
lean
happy to
into
help.
ageism. I don't like to discriminate against our elderly. Sometimes those wise leaders of the tribes have such incredible perspective, but I do feel like some of the older politicians aren't up to date on what real life is like. They come from a generation that's very different. And speaking from, as a 51-year-old grandma myself, I don't always get the things that my kids are going through or how society works or how anything works anymore because I lived in a very different time. And I think it's so important, Chris, to have people like you who are the younger generation standing up and doing things.
I agree. I've said
Yeah.
this
How many yachts
before.
do you need a water ski behind?
Yeah.
God, like I was,
I want zero yachts.
yeah.
I mean, I guess if someday somehow I became a billionaire, I don't know, maybe I'd buy a yacht, but it just seems like a lot of work to me. I'd rather just hang out with my friends, and I can think of better uses for $1 billion than a yacht,
And
personally.
the problem has been like, why don't we have things like universal healthcare? Why hasn't the housing market been corrected? Why haven't so many of the things that are causing just widespread
The
stress and
the answer
suffering?
the answer is very
What is the
simple.
answer?
We all know the answer, and it's money and power. Like that's what it is that
The
there's
people that have the
people.
money have the power.
Yeah, and they do not want to share it, and they don't want to give it up. There's this idea of a meritocracy that's always existed in America, which I think is one of its beautiful ideals, is that anybody can make it if they work hard and they really try, or maybe they find a new product for the market or whatever. But what's been happening over the past 50 years is that um, and I'm not saying like 1950s, 1960s America was perfect, but there was at least an attempt to create a level playing field for all of us to participate in. But over time, the wealthy and the corporations, when they're able to take advantage of a system that gets them somewhere, then it only makes strategic sense for them to remove that bridge behind them, to make it more difficult for the up and comers that come up
Oh,
behind them. Because if they keep that bridge open, then there's always someone chomping at their
competition.
heels, right? So why not just make it way harder? Introduce barriers to entry, make the costs super expensive, remove subsidies. So this was something that was talked about a little bit with Elon Musk during the Doge thing, is that they're like, oh, they're getting rid of all the green subsidies for electric vehicles. And people will be like, see, Elon Musk wouldn't agree with it if it was going to hurt his business. But the thing is that Tesla had actually exhausted almost all of their EV credits. So it wouldn't have impacted Tesla as much as it would have impacted a new entrant into the EV car market. And so there's just this tendency for the wealthy and large corporations to stack the deck in their favor. And the thing I have to keep reminding folks, and I hate saying this because I think I'm an overly positive guy. I'm an optimistic guy, but like, these people do not care about you.
Mhm.
Okay. And I'm not trying to create division. I'm not trying to stoke a civil war or whatever. I'm just acknowledging a reality that these people that are in power do not care about you. If they did care about you, we wouldn't be having these problems in these conversations, right? If Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, I don't know, Bill Gates, name the top like 30 wealthiest people in this country, George Soros, whoever, if they all got together, they could solve all of America's issues probably by the weekend. Well, we're at the weekend, the end of the weekend, we'll say. If these folks really did care about the America that they purport to love, that I love, and that I think, Jenny, you love and this audience
Mhm.
loves, they would be working with us to solve these problems. But most of them are not, and most of them are actively pushing against helping us.
It's funny when you start to make money, how that just like rots your brain. I've never been a billionaire. I've never been a multimillionaire, but my ex-husband and
Yeah.
I had an era in our lives where we had a lot of money. And I really didn't care about anybody at that time. My Our whole entire life was preserving our wealth. And I really looked down on other people. First of all, like part of that was just religious indoctrination that God blesses, the prosperity gospel. Like, look at
Yeah.
us, we're so righteous and we're so pure and we're being blessed because we pay our tithing. So all those people out there, like if you're homeless or the people who like just don't have enough, right? Like, well, they're not righteous enough. So they could come to church like me and Heavenly Father would bless them and they can pay their tithing and the windows of heaven would open to them. So part of that was religious indoctrination. But take the religion out of it, once you have money, your primary objective becomes ensuring that legacy for your children. So making sure that they had their college accounts and that we had savings accounts and trust set up for our kids. And then just all of our money went into maintaining our life, our $1 million
Mhm.
homes and our multiple vehicles and our boats and vacation properties and things like that. So like I really didn't care about people and I just had a little bit of money. I just had a tiny glimpse of, oh, this is
Yeah.
what it's like to have money in the bank. I can't imagine being Elon Musk.
Yeah.
That does something to you where you have to be a special type of person to just really not put yourself first.
Yeah, and I think you said a couple astute things there. I think the first is also that regardless of wealth, humans have a tendency to sort of like reach beyond their grasp. And so even people that make a lot of money still feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck because it's called the hedonic treadmill. As you make more money, you end up spending more money on stuff. And that process just keeps increasing. And so you've got a lot of people who maybe even started from nothing, now are making a lot of money. You sometimes see this in the professional environments, and they feel that sense of stress still because they know if they stumble or if they lose money, like it's all going to collapse on them. So I think part of it is we need to redefine just sort of in ourselves what success means and what we should be focusing on. But then the other thing, and this is where I talk to people, I was like, look, there definitely is a real feeling, and I'm 44 and I'm already starting to feel it, where I'm just like, oh my God, I've been struggling so long. I've been fighting for so long. I'm so exhausted. The idea of having to start back at zero. And I don't have money by any means. I wasn't able to pay my rent this month. I had to figure some stuff out. But I'm doing better than a lot of people. I consider myself very fortunate. But I want to remind folks that are, in the later stages of their life, I'm not trying to take anything from you. I'm trying to make sure that your healthcare is taken care of so you don't have to worry about it. I'm trying to make sure that Social Security is going to be the best it's ever been for not only you, but the generations that come after you. I'm trying to make sure that you are safe and secure, and so you don't have to worry about getting robbed or potentially, accosted while you're going out about living your life. I want that sense you kind of mentioned when we did our talk. I listened to it yesterday. I listened to the whole video.
Yeah, please
Um,
go watch our video. It's in my just my lineup of videos with Chris Volpe that just dropped yesterday. The full conversation with Chris yesterday I loved it. I learned so much from you.
Oh, well, I'm glad. But one of the things you talked about the 70s and 80s and sort of the 90s, just how good they are. And a lot of that was like, we just didn't have this. We had stress and we had challenges, but right now there's just this sense of dread that sort of sits on our chest. And if I can do one thing, I would suggest we have the prototype or whatever, the test for it. I'm going to put the actual ad on. But our first ad that we've ever done for my campaign was about this. It's called Quiet. It's on my YouTube, but it's about like just getting us back to a place where we can kind of breathe again, where everything isn't the end of the world and we just don't feel this crushing weight on us all the time. Um, and there is unfortunately some people in our leadership that want us there because an exhausted population can't fight back.
What's your Discord, Chris?
It's on, if you go to my website, volpeforamerica.com, there's a link to it right on the front there. My
And
Discord,
Volpe is VOLPE.
yep,
Chris, so
VOLPE
Volpe for America.
for America. Yep. And my Discord handle is @Volpe Creates, all one word.
Thank you. Um, I after talking to you the first time, what, about a month or so ago, it just the thing that popped into my mind was the Gettysburg Address, and so then I went back and reread, and it's very short, Lincoln went out to Gettysburg, and it was a very short speech. He'd been very sick the day before, so I don't know, some historians say there may have been a longer speech planned, but who knows? And after talking to you, I know I commented you after, sorry, I keep hitting my mic, after our first phone conversation, that you to me represent what I always thought America was supposed to be about, the of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that comes from Abraham Lincoln. Somebody else had actually written that down first. So I think that Lincoln was inspired by somebody else who said something similar, but Abraham Lincoln made that popular. He made that famous. And I just want to read a teeny bit of that. He's speaking about the Civil War. The great task remaining before us as American citizens, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we hear highly resolved that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And I guess I just spent most of my life feeling like that's what America had. Like, that's what makes us so different from the monarchy. That's what makes us so different from the Soviet Union that I grew up with, that in my mind was not government of the people, by the people, for the people. Um, I thought
Yep.
that that's what America was, but it really is not anymore. And a lot of that is because it takes the wealth and the power and living a certain type of life to even be able to run for office. And a lot of normal people don't want to run for office. So, in my mind, again, not as a politician, just, you guys know, Jenny's just learning things for the first time that other people learned in college. But part of our problem in America is that the people in power truly don't represent us. I had an idea in one of my
Yep.
videos last week. I said that before you even run as the president of the United States, they should drop you off in the suburbs of Ohio or somewhere. And they don't give you your trust fund. They're just like, here you are, get a job, go to work. And
Survive
it's
for
like
3 months.
Survivor Island in the
Yeah.
suburbs, just so that you can spend that year really relating to the people. Donald Trump doesn't know what it's like to be a single mom in Tucson, Arizona after a divorce, who couldn't afford to file for divorce and thus could not get food stamps. So, like, me and my kids were literally starving. And finally, I found like a Catholic food bank that would give us some food. Donald Trump has never lived that. Donald Trump has never not been able to have surgery because he didn't have health insurance. Donald Trump has never lived the life that any of us Americans have. And most of the senators, most of the our judicial branch, most of the people who are leading this country are not in any way a representation of the people. And that's the thing that impressed me so much with you, is that you have lived a very normal life. You, in my opinion, are a spectacularly intelligent person, having so many
Thanks.
conversations and seen the things that you've done. You're smart, you are competent, you have been successful and built some incredible things in your life, but you have lived a very normal life. Like, to my knowledge, you weren't building
Yep.
penthouses in
No.
Manhattan, were you?
No, no. I posted a video the other day about my bank account, so you can see how much money I have in my savings account, and it is not a lot. But I think one of the things I
Welcome
want
to
to say,
America.
yeah, I want to say is like I'm very fortunate, and I am the culmination of both. The childhood I had, my parents' insight, the education I had, and I was fortunate because the Volpes themselves were not. I mean, my grandfather used to chase trains to get coal that would fall off so they could heat their house, and then my dad went to school, ended up going to the Navy, and then went to medical school on the through the Navy's benefits. And so I was fortunate that like I'm someone I've never had to worry about a roof over my head or food on the table. But we also have always focused on like when I was going to grad school, I was also working full time. I was working 35 40 hours a week while doing full-time grad school, while volunteering. I've just always been someone that's worked a lot. And all of us are the culminations of the help and the support that we've got. So if we could apply that to everybody, who knows how many, you know, Einsteins we could pull out of the mix there. Like,
Hmm.
one of the things I talk about with students is that, like, I think it's a shame that we don't get to see the brilliance of so many young people, but it's even worse because those young people don't even realize their own brilliance.
Hmm.
And I just think that's a shame, and it's unnecessary. And again, economically, if we had a lot more people that were critically thinking, understanding complex issues, able to get access to the tools that would allow them to really foster their curiosity, then we would also have a lot more people that would be competitive on the global stage. And then you start thinking about things like AI and all this other stuff. You know, we would just have so many more people capable of leading us economically. So again, aligned incentives, like, all of these things make sense together in my mind.
It benefits the entire population. I have to say that when I was m- more, when I was wealthier, when I was MAGA, when I was hardcore Republican, I didn't want anyone to have benefits. Like, I was really afraid of the word Marxism and communism and socialism because
Yeah.
I just felt like, me and
Can I
my,
ask you, and I don't mean
Mhm.
anything by this, but, like, did you actually know what those any of those words meant?
I mean, not really. I knew what they meant from like some of my leaders at church and stuff, and just conversations within my community, within the echo chamber. So, like, to me, it just meant anything like a way of economics that was contrary to Heavenly Father's plan.
Yeah.
So, no, it wasn't until I left the church and started reading books, and then I actually read Karl Marx, and I was like, "Oh, I agree with all of this. That's really interesting." So, no, I didn't know what any of that meant. To me, it
Yeah.
was just stuff that I was regurgitating. Um, but I
No, I
didn't want anyone to have, and so to me, it's like we work really hard to create the safety net for ourselves, and every person needs to just put their shoulder to the wheel and work hard so that they can create their own safety net. And now that I'm on the other side and I'm more compassionate and I'm not part of that community anymore.
yeah.
Now I'm looking around and it's like all that I was doing is we were building a safety net for millionaires. We were building a safety net for the elite. And there's
Yeah,
absolutely no
that's an
safety net
important thing.
for the poor. There's
Yeah,
none.
we are creating this subsidy system. You know, I hear people. We said this in our talk, but people talk about, like, waste in the SNAP program for food stamps and things like that. And I'm just like, the amount of waste in that program, even if it was like the most wasteful program you can think of, and it's not. It's actually an incredibly efficient program. But even if it was the most wasteful program you can think of, it's still a drop in the bucket compared to what we subsidize large corporations and the wealthy for their taxes. And so it's just one of those things where the numbers don't make any sense. I heard somebody
Mm.
talking about how much money we waste on green energy subsidies the other day, and I was like, what we spend on green energy subsidies is nothing compared to what we fund and have funded oil, gas industries over the past 50 years. Like, the numbers aren't even in the same league. So I think we should be efficient. I think we should get a balanced budget. I think we need to get rid of our national debt. But let's be serious when we talk about these things and look at them with the nuance and care that they describe. But one of the things you mentioned is to remind me, one of my favorite lines. I love this because people will be like, I think people should pull themselves up from their own bootstraps. Like, everyone's heard that, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I love this because it's so fucking perfect, because that statement, pull yourself up from your bootstraps, is meant as a satire. It's meant as a thing you cannot do. So the people that are using it as this idea of, like, everybody should be pulling themselves up from their bootstraps is like, the whole purpose of that saying from its original
Wait,
source was
what?
that that is an impossible thing to do. Yes. Look at it. You can look it up. I believe it's Baron von Munchausen, I believe, is the source on that.
You can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Correct. Yeah.
That's funny. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to do a video on that. What? I
Yeah. Let me
think that
see if
one of the
I
problems, yeah,
I
find that
could
for
put
us.
the no, no, yeah, go
So,
ahead.
again, as a non-economist, non-politician here, I think that one of the problems with America is that we started during the Industrial Revolution. Capitalism took over. Like, America is not based on capitalism. America is a democratic republic, but our economic structure could have been anything. We could have done anything. financially with the United States, and we leaned really heavily into capitalism. And so as we grew, some of our role models were, the whole Gilded Age, the Carnegies and the Vanderbilts and these wealthy, wealthy people. And as a hard-baked moray and value in our society, we idolize the wealthy. And I think that's really
Hmm.
problematic because then we judge the poor, and all of us do. Everybody does it,
Yeah.
Like the
Can
fact
I
that we
tell you
even have
some?
terms like trailer trash.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm from Ohio. I mean, we have trailer trash, rednecks, white trash. Like we got all the labels here. Um, there is a very interesting psychological issue that's going on right now. And I see this a lot on the MAGA side, but anybody is capable of falling into it. But there is this belief that people would not do this thing, and you see that a lot, where it's just like, oh, Trump would never do that, right? Even though we're seeing it happen, and he's telling you he's going to do it. And so, for example, um, Donald Trump cannot be guilty of his crimes because a guilty person cannot be president. Thus, he is president. He is not guilty of his crimes, right? It's this very like twisted logic of where people are getting to. Donald Trump would never do that because that would mean he's blah blah blah, and he's not. It's just the reality is there's a lot of people that are having trouble making this jump. And so one of the things that I tell people, because again, everything always comes back to Donald Trump, which kind of pisses me off because I'm more interested again in solving problems.
Mhm.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, life becomes a lot simpler when you realize that Donald Trump is a con man and a liar, and he does not care about you. And what you need to do is every time you hear something, and this is part of critical thinking and sort of the road to wisdom, if you will, is okay, how do you know that? You're telling me this thing. How do you know that? Where do you find that information? Because I want to understand, not just here is a fact, but I want to understand where that fact came from, and is that legitimate? And as you start to dive down that path, you'll realize a lot of the things that you have grown to know for sure are facts and you were certain about are actually not true. There's a reason why, wives' tales exist, right? Like,
Mhm.
and so I think once you can start to get to that place, but in order for us to do that, there needs to be a level of trust. And I'm hoping that people will trust me and that I'm trying to look out for them, even if I don't agree with them. But I'm not trying to trick anybody. I'm not trying to pull anything over on you. Everything I'm advocating for, um, I believe will help you. And I'm trying to have the information that will also back that up. So it's not just something Chris Volpe believes, but it's something that is rooted in, because ultimately, I think this is the question you asked when we first started, how are we going to get out of this? It's the same way we're always going to get out of this. It's with sort of, in essence, the scientific method, which is looking at things logically and trying to understand the base root of what we're talking about and discussing. Um, that's harder done than said, but that's why science exists. Science exists because humans have their own internal biases, and we're exceptionally good at tricking ourselves into believing
Yes.
things. And that's why the scientific method exists. It's specifically there to help us get out of that process.
I do want to just point out too, for everyone who's listening, please share this with a friend. It's really easy for us these days to think that some guy running for Senate in Ohio doesn't matter to me in Tucson, Arizona. This is an Ohio race. But these state senators across the nation have an impact on us. Having Chris's vote in the Senate with the things that he wants to get in and do will impact me in Tucson, Arizona. It's going to impact the people in Portland, Oregon. It's going to impact the people in everywhere across the nation. So
Yeah.
I know for me that's one of the reasons why I've been engaging with you and I've been trying to promote your stuff so much.
And I'm very
And
grateful. Thank you.
like I don't live in Ohio. You're welcome. I don't live in Ohio, and I would love to see you in the Senate. And I'm sharing all of your stuff for my friends to donate. I'm pushing your stuff out to everybody that I know because although I don't live in Ohio, I've been through there about a dozen times in my life. It's a beautiful state, absolutely so different than Arizona. No cactus.
No
cooler
cactus.
temperatures, no cactus. You matter. And as I talk about my denim revolution all the time, and people are always asking, like, what can we do? How can we engage? One of the biggest ways that we can engage is we can look at some of these special elections that are going on in other states, and we can share, we can get to know all of the candidates, because the Ohio seat and the seat in Tucson that was just won here a couple months ago, and she still
Mm-hmm.
hasn't like been sworn into office yet. All of these seats matter because this is our United States Senate.
Yeah,
So if
I
you
see.
like
Yeah,
what Chris is doing, if you think that he's somebody that you'd like to support, then please go to his link, which is, once again, you put that up there, Volpe for America, and share with your friends. Like, I'm doing everything that I can to support your election because I know that you'll go to Congress and you'll do things for me and for my family and for my beautiful state of Arizona, all the way from
yeah.
Ohio.
I do love Arizona too. I've driven through there many times. But
It's the best state in the country. I'm not
yeah,
biased, but
I do love Ohio. I know that I get it. I get it. Yeah, someone mentioned Kat. Kat's another person running in Chicago suburb. She's really awesome. I think she's like 24 or 25 and running for Congress, which is great. I there is a reality too where it's like I'm facing headwinds against the Democratic Party. I have to beat Sherrod Brown in the primary, and to do that, I need name recognition and I need money. And so that's really challenging. I'm a lot more effective with my use of money, I think, than he is. And to be honest, I think I have more interesting things to say than Sherrod Brown is, but I have to beat him. And then I have to beat John Husted, who I would love to be on a debate stage with. I think that would be a lot of fun. And so
he's
the
the
help,
Republican candidate.
yeah, he's the Republican that's currently there. But those are the things is I need, anything that you can help get me connected to people, other potential podcasters, obviously help me fundraise, help volunteer. Because even if you're not in Ohio, you can still contribute. You can contribute to the fundraiser. You can be a part of the Discord. You can share videos that some of the people have mentioned on the chat. So I am going like straight grassroots, no lobbyist money, no corporate money. And my goal is to just really kind of plant a flag in Ohio that we can do better than this. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, being 1 out of 100 votes in the Senate is a big deal.
Mhm.
And in Ohio is going to be a big battleground come 2026. But here's the other cool thing is that even though Ohio is a sort of 55-45 red blue state, we're actually a very apathetic state. So there's a lot of people who want to come out, but Trump voters, MAGA voters in general, do not come out at midterm and special elections. They tend to come out to support Donald Trump, but they don't tend to come out for other elections. So this election in 2026 is actually a really big opportunity to do a pickup for a weirdo like me. And I'm there's plenty of MAGA people that I think actually there's a few MAGA people that said they'd vote for me already. So that's pretty awesome. But I think
I think
that
that's an important component of who you are, is that you're not just like Democrat, Republican. Like, yes, you are running as a Democrat,
Mhm.
but you are running for Ohio. You are running for America.
Yeah, I'm running for everyone. I mean, I think that the basics of for example, I think you could probably like half of the issues that we have as just ordinary folks could be solved by handling cost of living issues um and getting people out of poverty. Like those are like some of the major concerns that we have. Um what
I
is this?
just put this comment up here, not necessarily if you want to respond to this, as long as you're not some BLM
I gotta
bootlicker,
read it real quick.
LGBT lapdog, illegal invader, shell selling our nation to appease a bunch of fake oppressed groups, you'll probably have my vote. I have a family member that I loved with all of my heart. He was my cousin. He was LGBTQ. His life was miserable because of nonstop hate and discrimination, and he took his life. I have another friend who was killed at the young age of another cousin who was killed at the age of 21. There is no fake oppressed groups. I wanted to put this comment up here just so that I could highlight that unless you have lived as a minority, an immigrant, an LGBTQ teenager in a primarily Mormon or Christian town, unless you've walked through this yourself, you have absolutely no right. So I don't know if you're just trolling or if this is something that you truly believe, but this right here, if we cannot support those who truly are oppressed, who maybe my life is just fine, but when we see those over there, other people over there who need help, if we can't help them, if we can't lift those around us and protect the vulnerable, then what is the point of being a nation? That's literally what America was founded for. It was to protect the vulnerable.
Yep. I concur. I have a policy that if people are coming to conversations in good faith, I'll talk about any topic for however long you want to talk about it. However, if assuming I have the time.
Yeah.
But if you're just coming at with like a bunch of slogans and marketing things that you've heard from Fox News or whatever, then the question I really have to ask is, are we going to get anywhere? Right.
Support education so they can spell appease. Yeah. We need more education at this point.
Yeah. And I always say, like, I've been in, around, and a part of the LGBT community since before most of these people were born. And I'll tell you what, like, I'll support them all day, every day. These are just normal people trying to live their life. They're not trying to take anything from you. They're not trying to do anything from you, not trying to steal your children. I see a question on here about abortion. Do we want to jump into there?
If you want to jump into that, yeah, I just posted, Jen, if you don't like abortion, don't have one, mind your own business. Well said. That's how I feel about abortion. I think that abortion should be accessible for everybody because there are medical reasons and other reasons too, personal reasons why somebody needs to terminate a pregnancy. And I'm so tired, Chris, of the abortion conversation because we don't have conversations about men getting women pregnant. Do you know, I just pulled abortion demographics here a couple of weeks ago, and it's not even a race thing. It's pretty equally like whites and black people and Latinas, and it's all over the board, right? It's a pretty mixed bag. There's not like one demographic that stands out, but it's 19 to 23 year olds. So these are college girls who they find themselves in situations and they're pregnant and they have no support. The dad is like, I'm not taking care of a baby for the rest of my life. And they know that. So why don't we have the conversation about men ceasing to impregnate girls? Like every guy out there should have a glove box full of condoms. Maybe college boys should go get vasectomies. I'm tired of the burden of abortion being put on women. I think that it should be accessible to everybody, and we should have a conversation about how many pregnancies are terminated, but that conversation needs to be about the impregnant, the act of the impregnation.
So
not just women.
This might sound however it sounds, but I think one of the most you kind of look back at your life when you have some of those like aha moments or like the door unlocks or whatever. And I don't think I really kind of truly understood women, and I'm not saying that I truly do, but until my wife, so this would be, oh my God, 15 years ago or something, and just spending so much time with her and like hearing about her journey and her past. And there is a whole host of things that men just not only generally never have to deal with, but also never even have to think about. And when you realize that the female experience is different than the male experience in a variety of ways, I would hope that that would open you up to actually listening to women as they tell you things, because they're not just talking to hear themselves talk. They are trying to express to you their concerns and their thoughts and their fears and what they need. And I think once you kind of get to that space, then you begin to realize that, like, okay, there's a whole host of issues and concerns that as a guy, I am just not equipped to understand unless I am having a conversation with women. And so I guess I could consider myself pretty lucky that I kind of stumbled into that space as a man relatively early in my life. So I'd be like late 20s, early 30s. I've always surrounded myself with women. Like my friend group's like 50-50. That's another thing I've always found out weird when like guys don't have any female friends. Like I'm just like, you're missing out, man. Like women are awesome. And I do think that there is a conversation that needs to be had around sort of the responsibilities that men have. You were asking specifically about like pregnancy and abortions and things, because yeah, I mean, you are correct. In general, the world not only caters to men, but men have a lot of release valves in those situations that women don't have.
Hmm. I don't know, Sean, either if White Man from Town is being serious or just trolling, but the reason I'm putting his comments up is that he does reflect conversations that I have with real life people that I know are completely serious. So once you have nerve endings and brainwave function and can sense pain, it's less of a woman's issue and more of a human right issue, then you exactly are the type of person that should be fighting hard for universal health care. I personally suffered for 12 years because I didn't have access to medical care to fix something that was very easily fixable in one single surgery. One single surgery, I was better. I'm an adult human and I suffered for over a decade. I have a large homeless encampment just within walking distance. I have a homeless nonprofit, so I help some of the individuals in this camp. And these people are suffering every single day. They do not have
Mhm.
access to medical care, food. They're all malnourished. Some of them are dying in the heat.
Sure.
So if White Man from Town is that concerned about embryonic clumps that are just a few weeks old that have nerve cells and are able to sense pain, then he should be really riled up about the 26-year-olds that I'm helping in this homeless encampment who've been homeless because of intergenerational poverty since they were 17 years old. 17 years old, their whole family became homeless. These young men have not had a home, a shower, a kitchen, healthcare, dental care, just access to food on a daily basis, a safe place to sleep since they were 17-year-old seniors in high school. So if
Yep.
you're concerned about people with nerve cells and brain function that can sense pain, solve homelessness, and then come talk to me about abortion, let's make sure that like you should
Yeah.
definitely be out there fighting to make sure that there is no state that
Well,
has the death penalty.
sure. And I think this again, whether this is a troll or not, I don't know, but
Right. But this
that
conversation is happening everywhere. So
yeah,
it's
but
important to have.
that comment clearly illustrates, assuming this person is being legit, that person's pro-choice. They've established the line of where that pro-choice is, and generally, you're talking about 18 to 20 weeks before a fetus is going to be able to meaningfully have any pain response in any way. And even then, that doesn't necessarily mean that the baby is feeling pain in the way that we associate it. It's a stimulus response. So that
Well, it's not a
person,
baby yet. So, Chris, you just said something that a lot of people I always argue with. It's not a baby until it's born and takes a breath. It's an embryo.
yeah, well, I might push back a little bit on you. I hear what you're saying. And I don't want to get caught in the semantics because I think that's where we get into trouble. But yeah, I think
But it
that
is dependent on the mother. It's completely dependent on the mother.
yeah, I mean, it's not, you're looking at third trimester before it's even potentially viable outside
Right.
of the mother. um but my larger point was that if you sit down and actually have a conversation with people, and you like, because I totally get the pro-life stance. Like it seems icky, it seems gross. You are killing a potential human at the end of the day. But then also, I personally believe that the world is a better place when 50% of your population is capable of making its own health decisions. And that's why I think that women and their physicians need to have that conversation. And then at the end of the day, I do firmly believe, and I've had this conversation numerous times with pro-life people, is once you start talking about this issue, if they're actually open-minded, they will realize that they are in fact pro-choice. It's just where they draw the line is different. So rape and incest, for example, in Ohio, we had a very young girl who was a rape and incest case. And so now you're like, should she be forced? And I'm talking like young. Should she be forced to carry this child? And most people would say no. So now we've created a line. So now we are pro-choice. We're just deciding where that line is. Ectopic pregnancy is another one that I bring up, where a fetus in an ectopic pregnancy is not viable. It will never be viable, and it will die. Additionally, it will kill the mother. So now most people say like, okay, ectopic pregnancies are something that we should do. And then the one I always like to bring up, because this is an actual conversation that's going on We haven't heard much about it recently because we've been kind of in like tariff and deportation land, but it was happening. Is are fertilized eggs human life? And a lot of people believe they are, but the one question you need to ask yourself is, if you believe that, is a miscarriage considered murder? Because the vast majority of fertilized embryos either do not implant, or they implant and there's an issue in the coding and the mother's body rejects it. And most of those times, the woman doesn't even know. It's just a part of her normal monthly cycle. So now, if you are 100% pro-life and no abortions and a fertilized fetus is murder, then you also have to be comfortable with women going to jail for murder because of a miscarriage or a failure to implant. And I, for one, do not want to live in that world. Like, I just do not think that is a reasonable place to hold this conversation. And so this is a very tricky issue, and I fully understand where people are coming from. And I am willing to have that conversation with somebody and see if we can find a place of good faith to sort of meet in the middle. And I think a lot of people felt that Roe v. Wade was that place, and we've lost that, and it's causing and will cause a lot of challenges that will need to be addressed.
They will need to be addressed. And again, I think that a lot of the blame is being put on women. So the young girl who is, not able to have an abortion despite it being incest or whatever, why isn't every one of those men that impregnates these young girls in jail for the rest of their lives? Let's start preventing abortions through other means so that women don't find themselves in these positions. And we're smart enough as a society to be able to do that. And I know that that's a complex issue that probably is not part of your platform running for senator in Ohio.
No. I mean,
But
in public health, that's referred to as the downstream. It's that we
Mhm.
can, instead of worrying about trying to make sure that everybody that gets cancer is taken care of, why don't we work on the antecedents to cancer so that they don't get it in the first place?
So I
Or that
have
we,
an idea for that.
okay,
Um,
hit me.
so my idea is we have the technology for paternity testing, very simple. If you when a baby's born, every baby born in the hospital, every man in America has to provide a DNA sample. Any baby born in any hospital in America, we're going to test that against the database of men. And if you have a baby, congratulations, your wages are garnished until that baby turns 18. You also have to provide just absolute mandatory across the board child support if you have a baby. And just that alone, I'm pretty sure that men would start thinking twice about getting girls pregnant. I think that abortions would be reduced greatly if that was on the table. I mean, every college kid would be like, "Oh, honey, we got to use some birth control because if that baby's mine, then my little, what kind of a job do most of my college kid friends have? Like one of my our college son works at Starbucks, right? He's gonna have his wages garnished because that woman has a baby, and he also has to pay for half of the prenatal care. He has to pay for half of the medical expenses for childbirth and all these other things. Like, if that was the law, abortion would be greatly reduced. Every college guy would be making sure that he was using birth control and prosecute those people in cases of rape and incest.
Well,
I
yeah, absolutely on that. Yeah,
have
for sure.
so many friends that I've watched, like, rape cases that it's just stunning. There's not prosecution
Yeah.
for those
I,
crimes.
that's another thing when I'm talking about just like men in general, like the
Vote for me
idea
for
of being,
president. I will put that into law, by the way, Debbie.
the idea of being raped from a man's perspective is just something that does not pop into our heads.
Right, because
That is
98%
just,
of rapes are
yeah,
man
that's just a
on woman.
thing.
Mhm.
So when you think about the life experiences of other people, which again, ultimately at the end of the fucking day is what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to create a society that doesn't necessarily cater to the whims of everybody, but understands that everyone's lived experiences is going to be different and people are coming from different places. And if you can simply provide them the support to lift up their bootstraps or whatever, but just provide them the support for them to be successful. At the end of the day, that's all people are asking for. Nobody's sitting around being like, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but you get the idea. Hyperbolically, nobody's sitting around being like, man, everyone should just give me a mansion and whatever. Like, people just want to feel like they can do it on their own. Like there is an opportunity, there are better days, over the next hill. And I don't think a lot of people feel like that right now. I certainly don't. I mean, I'm excited about the opportunities to just restructure society in a way that's better for all of us. But it's going to take a lot of work to get there, and it's going to take a lot of people that are going to have to give up and sacrifice to really make it happen. Which again is
And I
not.
appreciate that you're doing that. Like, it's so inspiring that you are running for office because you're living a happy life. It's not like going if you are elected to Senate, it's not like, wow, now your life is rosy. Now your life is a lot of hard work and you're in
Yeah,
there on the front lines fighting for
and
America.
there's
So
real
hats off
questions
to you. So
about
much
like
respect.
what do I have to do with my business and making sure that my business functions and my people, because I've got other business partners. I won't be able to run my business while I'm doing the Senate. I won't be able to teach while I'm a senator. I've been teaching for over a decade, and I won't be able to do that anymore. And so there's real decisions that will have to be made when I get to that space. But I also, for what it's worth, and I hope that other people can kind of find this in them, that energy and that joy, and being like, I can be an active participant in making my country better.
Hmm.
I can build the future with other people that I want to live in, so that when Jennie, you and I have this conversation in 10 years, we can look back and be like, man, look at what we did. Like we kicked ass here, look how much better the world is now. And I think that's pretty exciting.
I think that's exciting too. I love that. Does anybody have any final thoughts? I know that Chris has other things to do today. I so appreciate your time. I appreciate just the vision that you have for change and the compassion that you have for people around you. You truly are. My granddad always talked about public servants, and you truly are what I consider a public servant type of politician. Um,
I
okay. Anybody have
appreciate
any
that.
final questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to answer another, I'd probably do another question, maybe 13 minutes or whatever of questions. And then the other thing too, I always say this, it's just like, I appreciate all the comments. I appreciate all the support, but like, isn't it sad that our bar is so low that like I'm viewed as this refreshing candidate that's coming out and changing the world? Like, I don't know. I just feel like we should be in a better place that doesn't require Chris Volpe from Columbus, Ohio, to be out here changing the world. But yet here we are.
I've talked to a lot of different political candidates across the country, and I think that you are kind of just on trend. There are a lot of people
Oh, am
who,
I?
I
Okay.
would have never thought to run for politics, but just with the way that everything's going, we had a young lady in Tucson here, and she was running for our the seat that I can never. What I say her last name wrong all the time. Her father died and she's the one who hasn't been sworn in yet. But her name is Deja Fox, and she's 26 years old, and she's born and raised in Tucson, and
Mhm.
she registered and ran and just had so much passion for the people of Tucson and for the change that she wanted to make. And I knew that she didn't have a chance because this congressman's daughter was the shoe-in, but she turned it into an incredibly close race. And I did everything that I could to support her just because I loved her energy. She didn't necessarily have a career that would support her, maybe having all of the skills to get into office, but it was just beautiful to see that energy and that compassion for her constituency. But
That's awesome.
yeah, Deja Fox, she was so incredible.
Well, I certainly could use all the help I can get. So I appreciate it. I'm very grateful for you and your audience, because I ultimately, at the end of the day, getting the message out there and sharing what the future can look like requires getting in front of as many people. Um, and it is not easy. Our political parties are not built for new voices.
Well, they're not because the rich people are in charge and they've kept it like that for a reason. Like money and power, money and power. So if you're a rich person,
Yeah.
you have someone in your family that's going to run for Senate and take over dad's seat, or, if you run some business, then you're going to run for office so that you can protect the interests of your business. So it was Senator Gravalha, and she hasn't been sworn in yet, even though she won decisively.
Hmm.
Donald Trump has been
I think she
having,
showed up too. I think she went to Washington, and then there
yeah,
was like, she was surprised there was no, she's like, I'm ready to be sworn in. And there was no one was there to swear her in.
crickets chirping because
Um,
America is We're
And
going
I
through a weird era
believe,
right now.
just to sort of put a pin in the one of the, don't quote me on this, but I thought I read something that a male fertility vaccine was being worked on, and seemed like it was getting closer. So male birth control, like, so if there's a possibility to do like a temporary male birth control kind of thing, and then maybe you could take another vaccine to undo it or whatever. Oh,
I would never
pineapple on
trust male
pizza
birth
thoughts.
control because they're gonna walk away and then I'm gonna be left with the baby and I'm gonna be a single mom. That happened to my 19-year-old daughter 10 months after their baby was born. Baby daddy walked away, and so I now have a grandbaby that's being raised by a very vulnerable single mom that, the family tries to support as well as possible. I'm not gonna trust a male birth control. There's no way in hell that
Oh,
like,
I
guys
don't
can
think
get
you
out for
should.
themselves, but
I don't think you should trust it as like the only means, but I think if you could combine a condom with some sort of vaccine combined with a female birth control pill, I mean, that's like 3 layers of effectiveness right there, right? But
yeah. Pineapple on
uh,
pizza?
I'm not generally a pineapple on pizza guy. Every so often, I might try specialty pizza, but it's generally not my thing. But if it is
Wait,
you, then
what's your pizza? What's your pizza?
so the two pizzas I generally do, there's a place called Adriatico's here in Columbus, and I will do that's just pepperoni and sausage, like the crumbly sausage. And then Hound Dog's pizza, we'll go and get the Smoke and Joe's crust, which is a butter crust, and then we get this Smoke and Joe's sauce on it, the spicy sauce. And usually I'll do, again, cheese, maybe pepperoni, sausage. Might throw a little jalapenos on there. We'll see how I'm feeling. If I'm feeling spicy.
That sounds so good. I have eaten pineapple on pizza twice this week. I always eat pineapple on pizza. It's pineapple, jalapenos, and then like my pepperoni
Yeah.
and sausage. We have a little place in town called Chow Down in Tucson. And my Tucson people, Chow Down is my addiction.
Is the pineapple on pizza, is that like a thing for your
It's a
channel?
thing. It's all no, it's all
Okay.
over TikTok. Like the
Okay.
youngsters talk about the pineapple on pizza. Are you a pineapple on pizza person?
Mm.
So
UBI, I'm a really big fan of UBI. In so like in my perfect world, can I give you my perfect world for a second?
we
Let's
like
say
perfect worlds.
let's just say we solve
Fantasize a
all the
little bit.
problems. We have universal health care. You've got access to education. Our cost of living is reasonable. We enjoy working with other countries and traveling around. If we could get our debt under control, get rid of our national debt, which would probably take about 20 years of particularly wealthy and corporations contributing to knock it out. I would love to implement a UBI policy that would sit on top of all those other things and would help us out, because I think ultimately at the end of the day, we should be striving for a society that is less about this sort of like grinding work ethic and more about how do you better yourself as a person? How do you make use of the life you have and the time that you have to grow and learn and build relationships and create art and create businesses and whatever. And I think UBI could be a very important part of that, because I view all of us as citizens, as owners in this country. And if this country is doing successful and we're pulling in extra money, I don't see any problem with that money being redistributed to people, whether it's a couple $100 a month or $1,000 a month or whatever. Because just imagine that for a second. Don't have to worry about your healthcare premiums. Don't have to get saddled with giant student loan debt. Your cost of living is reasonable. Your housing is reasonable, and you're pulling in $500 to $1,000 a month. Like, think about what you could do, particularly as a young person, how you could start building your life and your career and your family in that
Hmm.
kind of situation. Like, that would be amazing.
Honestly, that was my life in the early 2000s. I got married in 1995, and we had about $100,000 income that year because of our business that we started. We had a windshield business that was just really successful. So, like, we were 20-year-old kids pulling in, like our first month in business, our profit was $14,000. That was a lot of money. But just in general,
That's pretty good for a first month on a
it
small
was really
business.
good. Yeah, like, the
That's
90s were
really good.
great, though, but a lot of it was just the economy. The economy at the time was supportive of small businesses. We lived in Arizona, which was a growing state, and our first house was a semi-custom little starter home for $102,000. I spent about $60 a week on groceries. We had a landline. I had to go buy a phone for like $50 down at the store. But then we just had a landline that was, I think our cable and our landline combined was $19 a month. And I bought myself a brand new Toyota Tacoma pickup truck for, I don't know, 15, 16,000, something like that. Like prices were so much more affordable and healthcare was affordable. And a lot of employers offered really good healthcare. And just because of the state of the economy at the time, like that was my life
Yeah.
in the late 90s, early 2000s. And my children no longer have access to that life. Talk about homes. I listened to an economist here. He's from Britain. I can't remember his name. If I find him, I'll put the link in the description here. But he said that housing should be subsidized by the government. Everybody should have the right. And then there should be caps on, investors and different things like that. Everybody has
Yeah.
the universal
Just one
right to
thing
housing.
we could do is not allow foreign investors to buy our residential property. Like that
Yeah.
alone would open it up. And I think in our conversation, we talked about the homeless and you just brought it up. There is almost 30 vacant houses in the United States per every homeless person. Like just
So we can house everybody.
we can house everybody and it still wouldn't even, we'd still have 28 houses left per person. So I would love to go on David Pakman and Secular Talk and all those. It's hard to get into them. So if you have any contacts, please let me know. I do reach out to them, but I would love to talk. Brian Tyler Cohen. I mean, there's plenty of places that I would love to chat, and I'm happy to chat on the conservative side as well. Because I am running as a Democrat, but I don't view my sense of identity as being attached to being a Democrat. That's not. I don't call myself a liberal or a lefty or whatever. I'm just Chris, and I'm just trying to do the best I can. But you hit on something real fast. Just the cost of being poor is so much more expensive. You think about it now, you're like, well, you had your landline, you went and you got your phone, right? Remember, houses used to have a phone, maybe two in the entire household.
Yeah.
Now every individual in the household has their own phone. So now you're paying for a phone. Your iPhone is a lot more than $50. So you're spending between $800 to $1,200 on your phone. Each line is going to run you $20 to $40. So just the base costs of all those little things, it really adds up. And when you're poor, you can't always afford the reliable stuff. So people that are wealthy, they can buy clothes, cars, utensils, things for their house that could last them a decade, right? Poor people might only be able to buy something that can last them a year or two. So over the long run, they're paying more for those items, like shoes, for example. And so it's just really challenging to be in there, to be sort of financially insolvent or unstable.
Yeah, houses need to be a basic human right, not an investment. And honestly, I know that so many people are opposed to socialism, but I am 100% happy to pay more taxes. If I'm paying a higher percentage of the money that I make sure that there is housing for everybody, healthcare for everybody. This economist that I listen to, it's housing, healthcare, transportation, education, and food. He said that those things within every thriving economy are subsidized to some degree, and that America cannot continue if we do not subsidize those and bring the prices down so that people have affordable housing. I just saw a thing, I think it was a Wall Street Journal here a couple of weeks ago, the average price for first-time homeownership 20 years ago was 26. The average American was 26 years old. And then it went up a decade ago to like 31, and now the average age of first-time home ownership in America is 39. And one of the reasons this is a big problem is that for a lot of people, your home is your retirement plan. It's a big portion of your retirement.
Yeah.
And more people, like a huge percentage of Americans, will never be homeowners now. We are stuck in renter mode forever. So then when you're old enough to retire, then you don't have that asset to sell to fund, the downsizing, the nursing home, whatever that is. My grandma, she sold her house. She was able to pay for her nursing home until she passed away. We don't have that anymore. I've been renting for ever. Like I
don't have
hopefully,
a house. I'm rent.
Right. Like I've rented the last time that I owned a home was like, I don't even know. I can't remember. And I've been divorced for 7 years. So lived in abject poverty after my divorce. I was left with nothing. So here I am at 51 years old. I have zero retirement. I have almost nothing in my bank account. I have no home ownership. And I'm set up to like live with one of my kids when I retire. Like I don't have the money for anything.
Hmm.
So like that home ownership is a huge, huge problem.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
expensive to live for.
Homes as an investment are not particularly good investments when you look at like the return on investment, that the dollars you spend. But the nice thing about homes is that they force average people into building equity into something, whereas they ordinarily might not. And then eventually they can either sell that house or they can live there for, no rent. So it's super, super important. Um, Here's a little stat just to chew on, since you mentioned it.
Yeah,
You and I are kind of in the same age ballpark, but the the
sort of.
income,
Nice.
yeah. Well, I mean, we're only what, 6 years apart, 7 years
I don't know.
apart.
I'm
That's cool.
40. I'm
That's cool.
51. You're 40, right?
Well, my ex-wife is 8 years older than me, so um, but the family income needed right now, and this is in Ohio, like this isn't just like a standard place. This is not like New York City. Um, Needed to match the purchasing power of just an average home in the mid 90s is about $225,000.
Mhm,
So ask yourself, how many families do you know are making $225,000 right now? And it's not a lot, right?
mhm.
I think that would put you in the at least top 5% of earners, I think, $225,000. And that's just to match a typical, you know, moderate family living in the 90s.
I saw that list published. Where was that published? So they
I
had it by
I'd,
city,
I'd have to look it up.
and
Are you talking about
in
yours? Yeah.
Phoenix in Phoenix, it was like 413,000 was what it took. I live in Tucson. Tucson, it was only like 43,000 or something because we're just kind of like we're different. Tucson is still kind of the Wild West, and it's more socioeconomically depressed, which is why after my divorce, I was forced to relocate to Tucson because I couldn't even afford rent and I was
Hmm.
homeless. And Tucson, 2 hours away from Phoenix, had a more affordable lifestyle. So, yeah, nobody can afford that. So, what's the answer to that? How do we fix that?
Whew, I mean, are we going to start another hour conversation?
What's
Um,
what's the short version?
I mean, I think that so cost of living, first of all, we need to get rid of this tariff nonsense. Like, this is just ridiculous. Like, we are artificially inflating costs across the board for no reason, and it's not giving us any competitive advantage. So, get rid of this tariff nonsense. Strategic tariffs are one thing, but these blanket 100% tariffs are stupid. Um, I think removing the costs associated with living, so subsidizing healthy food and uh, trying to remove things like food deserts and whatnot is super important, because again, you go back
Mhm.
to poor and middle class people. If you don't have easy access to food, groceries, your essentials, then you're paying through the roof on these costs and you're never going to get out of it. So we need to be looking at food deserts, subsidizing healthy food, and looking like or looking at tearing back subsidies we put on. Like, we put a really big subsidy on sugar. I would argue we probably don't need to do that when they're pulling in billions of dollars of profits every year. Um,
Yep. Nobody needs to make us buy sugar. We're
yeah,
buying it.
we mentioned housing is a big one. I think that we need to prevent foreign investors from being able to
Absolutely.
purchase residential property.
Here
It's
in
just
Tucson,
artificially inflating.
I'm kind of tied into the housing market because I used to build homes and some of my family members are architects and builders and stuff. And I'm surprised by how many investors there are from the United Arab Emirates and Dubai who
Hmm.
own in Israel who own huge swaths of homes here in Tucson, Arizona, like all over the place. They're some of our biggest investors here.
So some of that might have been also connected into the housing crash in 2008, because what ended up happening in the mid 2000s is that we saw a lot of United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, a lot of Middle Eastern, some China, Southeast Asia. A lot of people were generating tremendous amounts of wealth and they didn't have anywhere to put the money. And so the banks decided to tranche up these subprime mortgages so that they could sell these things to these investors because there was all this money sitting on the table and they didn't want to lose it. But yeah, we just have all these people that are buying these giant swaths of residential property, artificially jacking up the price. I think it's gross, bordering on criminal, that we have 30 unused houses just sitting around per homeless person. So because that also means, again, you take care of all the homeless people, you're now down to 29 houses per homeless person. What's going on with those 29 houses? What are we doing for it? And so I think we could do things. Tax incentives for your main home, your primary home, and then secondary and vacation homes would have a graduated tier tax, for example. I see a lot of folks talking here about billionaires, and I think that's really interesting. I look at that a little bit different. I'm one of those people, I don't give a shit if they're billionaires. I honestly don't care. One, I think that the thing you have to remember is that all of these billionaires don't actually have billions of dollars sitting around. Some of them do, but most of it's in paper money. And so that's the value of their company. But secondly, I would rather live in a world that allows billionaires to exist, but they're taxed appropriately and equitably, and that there are no poor people. If we could live in a world where there is no poor people and we aren't suffering from hunger, like why is the United States have any child hunger? Like that is, I
Oh,
think,
it's
immoral.
ridiculous. Yeah.
I think it's immoral. So if we lived in a world where there was things like universal healthcare, education, every child was fed, maybe UBI, and so everybody had this base standard of living that was like great, then I don't really care if there's a couple billionaires around. Now, I don't think they should be able to use their money to influence elections and things. That's a different conversation. But
Right.
let's focus on. I would say let's focus on seeing these people that are quote unquote successful on the billionaire space. Let's tax them appropriately. And I say tax because that's just the simplest way to get the money on the back end. It makes things a lot easier because we already have a tax system set up. Then we can start using that money to reinvest in this country, and give us all the opportunities and the freedoms that America is supposed to be the ideal of. Like, let's do that.
That's a
In
really
my
good
in my
point.
humble opinion.
That's a really good point, and I dialogue about that in just a slightly different way. I tell my audience that we need to focus on the floor, not the ceiling. So, billionaires, like, we've been so focused on the ceiling forever. Like, let's break through all those glass ceilings, and we're gonna have our first trillionaire ever and all this stuff. And, like, I think that we need to ignore the billionaires. We need to pull the financial rug out from under them. I'm very intentional with how I spend my own money. Like, I'm not gonna I just turned down a collaboration with Walmart. I said, there's no amount of money that you can pay me that would be worth promoting the largest corporation on the planet when I don't believe in
Mhm.
corporations. So I'm not
So you're
going
not
to
going to go
do.
to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and do your comedy
No.
tour?
No, I'm not. So so I'm very intentional with companies that I work with as much as I can be. But in a way, I think that we just need to ignore the billionaires, stop thinking about them, and let's start focusing on the floor. Yeah, we've broken through all those ceilings, but we have this corroded floor, and people don't have the health insurance, and people are really struggling. I struggled. I suffered. My kids didn't have food. We didn't have health insurance. And I have so many, and I was privileged. I had family
Yeah,
that was eventually able to help me
and
out
it's
and get me into
unacceptable.
housing, and there are people who don't have that, who are suffering more than anything that I've ever imagined, and it's unacceptable. So we need to start focusing on the floor and stop focusing on that ceiling. Let's ignore them. Let's stop thinking about them. Let's focus on doing our best for all of the people around us, for the working class Americans.
I
That
agree.
should be our
And
number one priority.
as a I hate saying I'm a politician because I don't feel like one and I don't really want to be one, but I open the door for the wealthy to come and join us, be a part of making this country better. Like
Hmm.
let's work together to make it happen. Um, and this is one of those things I sort of joke about this. Is like all we're really asking is for the wealthy and the corporations to just be like a little less greedy, just like a little bit, and we could do some amazing things. But um
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a big issue. But I think the issue, the thing I was getting at, and again, we don't need to get too stuck in this, is that because it's on paper money, you can't actually stop them from being billionaires, because you're like, okay, well, they hit $1 billion and no more money. But the thing is, they're not getting money. So what do? Start selling off portions of their company? Who do you sell it to? Because now you've created a hostile takeover environment where foreign influences can jump in and start taking over companies. And so that's the tricky part when you start talking about eliminating billionaires, because the logistics to do that is so potentially harmful and detrimental, not only to the company, but to the shareholders and the employees, that it just becomes really, really difficult. So that's why I say, let's focus on letting companies be as successful as they can, but then making sure that their power and influence is constrained, and that the money that they are profiting from is also being brought back to the workers and to society.
Right, and that's kind of the missing link right now. I just love this comment. Keep up with your neighbors, not the Kardashians. I think that's what it's all about. And some of that is that intentional shopping. Like I do a lot of thrifting
Yeah.
specifically from stores where it is individual vendors, where it's a small family owned thrift shop. Kevin and I are going to go out to dinner and do some different things this weekend. We try to make sure that we are supporting local businesses, that there's real life people. Kevin commented when we first started dating 7 years ago, he's like, it seems like you know the owner of every company. And I pointed out that's because I don't shop at corporate stores. I know the
Mm-hmm.
owners because I'm going into the small restaurant, the small thrift
Yeah.
store, the
And you're,
family
you're probably
owned store.
talking their ear off too, I'd
I'm
imagine.
talking their ear off every time I go in, but I know the owners, and that's an intentional, if I can find a new pair of shoes, well, a used pair of shoes at a thrift store, I'm gonna do that over going into the mall, going to Target, things like that. So again,
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, let's not keep
I
up
feel
with
you.
the
I was just at the farmer's
Kardashians.
market. Yeah,
Yep,
I'd screw
farmers
that. All
markets are
that
great.
stuff's nonsense. Like, stop being on social media and all of that. Like, try to find a balance in your
Except for
life built
YouTube
on.
here. Be here.
Yeah, I mean, watch content that's worth it and that values you. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
X on here asks, you have capital gains tax. I don't know if that's in response to my thing, but the thing is, capital gains tax that happens when you sell. So if you own 100% of a business, and then that the shares, let's say there's 1,000 shares or whatever, and then all of a sudden that business goes and becomes $1 billion, you're not taxed on that because you still own 100% of the business. You haven't sold anything.
Mhm.
So then my my question is, well, what do you do? Do you force them to start selling shares of that business off? Okay. But then who do they sell those shares to? And it's possible that those shares could be sold in ways that would be very detrimental. So in essence, if you do that, you create an incentive where foreign investors and hedge funds, they just wait until a company hits that $1 billion mark, and then they come in and they start buying tons of it, and before you know it, foreign investors own vast portions of. That was my only point. But yeah, also I do think along this, one of the things that rich people can do that normal folks like us can't do is that they can take out debt against their
Mhm.
equity ownership, and when they do that, they're not taxed on that.
Mhm.
So they take out, they need whatever $50 million, instead of selling shares equivalent to $50 million and paying their capital gains tax on that, they'll take the debt out from a bank, and then they'll pay interest. And so that is a loophole that I think at some point, if you were going to use your equity as collateral and debt, there should be a tax on that. It doesn't have to be a full capital gains rate tax, but there should be a tax on that, um, for sure, because that's how
Hmm.
rich people get away with some of this stuff.
Um, Trump loves that. Let's end there. Debbie, I love what you say. Local support is the key to reinvigorating the economy.
Hmm.
And I think that one of the biggest things that I've learned the past couple years is that just small acts, somebody running for Senate, changing the way that you shop, supporting a business, voting, getting out and voting, some of these small things, it's the slight edge effect. Collectively, when we come together to do things, we can create huge change. You look back at history, and yeah, there are big moments, but there's a lot of little moments that lead to where we are today. And one of my biggest takeaways from being really engaged in politics the past couple of years has been John F. Kennedy when he said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. I hope that at least right now, with Trump in power, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, that you are engaged for the first time, maybe in a long time, and that you're
Yep.
thinking, what can I do for my country? It's really easy to sit back and say, this is going wrong and America's messed up here and I wish that this would change. Well, what are you actually doing today? Are you just going to work, coming home and watching Netflix, or are you actually emailing your senators? Are you one thing that I do is I try to really make sure that the rubber's hitting the road when it comes to helping other people around me, because I was a single mom, because I lived in poverty. I was homeless. I was sleeping in my car without enough to eat. Like, I was dropping weight like crazy. My friends are like, "Wow, Jennie, you look great." I didn't have food. So because I've lived that and I know what it's like, I try to do everything that I can to help other people. One small thing that I do is I order food boxes for a couple of single moms from HelloFresh. I know there's a lot of great food companies out there that you can order like food boxes. And
Hmm.
I don't have a lot of extra money. I'm only able to provide 2 meals a week for these single moms. One has one toddler, another one has two. And just to be able to like send that food box to, these single moms of mine that I know need a little bit of help, and it helps them, alleviate some of their food budget, some of their grocery budget. And I don't know, it's really yummy stuff that they can throw together in a hurry for their kids and provide fresh meals. I have my two homeless youth here, and I started my own nonprofit just so that I could help people, so that I
There
can
you
go to
go.
Trader Joe's and say, I'd like
You're
some food
rocking it, eh?
donations. Well, and like I am a high functioning disabled woman, so I have an anoxic brain injury. I don't have a lot of time and I don't have a lot of money. And I feel like if I can do these things, anybody can do this. But
Oh,
I
totally.
didn't
I
start doing that until I started to engage. And when
Yeah,
I
I think.
realized I need to do
Sorry.
something, then I did. Go ahead.
No, I think we can all find a way. So one of the things, I talk to a lot of people that are just exhausted and they're burnt out and they're just scared and anxious. And I'm like, I kind of have three things. The first is like, take a second and find that joy. What is that thing that gets you excited about what could be in the future? And maybe it's taking care of your family or seeing a better world for your grandkids or whatever it is. Find that joy, because that's what's going to kind of keep you motivated during the hard times, and then get out there. But also, don't don't be afraid of taking care. I think a lot of us are hard. Don't be afraid of taking care of yourself. If you need to step back for a
Mhm.
second and you need to take a break and you need to rest, remember, if you high performing athletes still need their rest, right? We all need our rest, whether it's physical or mental or both. So take that time to find the rest and then get back out there when you can. Because then when you're ready, you can start helping other people too.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. That's a really important point. I started helping other people with just $40 a month. As a member of the Mormon church, I'd paid 10% of my tithing. We were quite wealthy. So my ex-husband and I paid between two and $300,000 in tithing over the course of our 24-year marriage. That's a lot of money. So on an average month, we had like $2,000 that was going to the church. So when I lost everything, got divorced, and left the church, it was still important for me to give back. And I committed even at a time when I had a very low income and was on food stamps and medical health or state health insurance and all kinds of different things, like very, very, very poor. I dedicated $40 a month that I was gonna help somebody else, and I was very targeted with what I did with that. I remember one time I just bought, like, cold water bottles and popsicles and put them in a little cooler and took them out to homeless people here. Um, at Christmas time, I found a single mom that I was able to just give, like, a $40 donation to help with some Christmas. And that didn't seem like a lot, but that $40, just having a little bit every single month that you do to help. Sometimes it's not even about money. Sometimes it's just finding those local nonprofits, those local charities that need a little bit of labor, and just dedicating, 2 hours to going to school board meetings, helping donate to Chris's campaign so that we can get him into the Senate and have his voice out there. There's so many ways that we can help, but I think it's time that we all engage.
yeah, I totally agree. I think I saw Sean's there. Kind of feels like we've passed the point of no return.
I don't think we
I
have, but I think we're close.
I did. So the thing is, I don't think there is a point of no return. I think I hear what you're saying, that the point of no return is into a very dark place. But remember, history is a thing that happens in front of us. And so there will always be another point of no return. If we fall here, we can pick each other up and keep walking to the next part. And if we fall there, we can pick each other up and move to the next part. goodness and justice and, being kind and fighting for values that we think are American, that is not something that will ever go out of fashion. And don't let these jackasses convince you otherwise.
Amen. I appreciate that sentiment a lot. Well, I'm going to let you run. Again, we'll have links in the description, but you can go to tell us where to find you. Once again, your website is
Volpe4America.com, and it's got links to all my socials, our Discord, everything. So I greatly appreciate being here, Jenny. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful conversation. Thanks everybody in the chat. It was really fun talking to you. And if there's any way that I can help you out in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate you spending time. You are such an inspiration to me. I've been sharing you with everybody that I can. And that's my big ask as we wrap this up. Will you guys go share this video with just a couple of your friends? If you have people who are podcasters, reach out to them and tell them that you'd like to share Chris with them. But post this to your Facebook pages, post this to your Instagrams, share Chris and get people excited so that they can engage with him. And I appreciate you being here so much. You guys give me so much hope. My comment section is one of my favorite things in my life right now. And whenever I feel like the world is falling apart, I just go to you guys and it's like, oh, there are a lot of really compassionate, kind, rational people out there who are fighting to change the future in positive ways. So I appreciate all of you more than you could ever know. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for putting that up there for us. We'll have links in the description. And I hope you guys all have a fabulous Saturday.
Thank you.
Bye,
Everyone.
everybody.